to talk about what yoga looks like right now in our community. And like, why is that important? I've had a lot of life, and me personally, I was in an abusive relationship, two abusive relationships. Let me get that correct. When I was younger, and I felt like I wasn't important enough to set up a intentional relationship with myself. And it was learning my physical body and then learning my emotional self through yoga that helped me to love myself and then set myself to be the person who I am now. Like, y'all, Alicia from back in the day is very different from Alicia now. Okay, I see a question. Does yoga originate in India? If so, India was one of the oldest integrated nations outside of Africa. There's history of black slaves becoming kings through India. Ooh, thank you. That's George Foreman. Thank you, George. That's my friend. What's up, friend? He does yoga and boxing and all that. So let's talk a little bit about history. So the way that history is recorded and preserved is that someone takes account of what occurred and it is published or recorded. So it doesn't have to be like published in a newspaper, right? It is recorded in some way. So it could be a photo, it could be video, it could be hieroglyphs, it could be, any type of way that it's recorded. Nowadays we have video recordings and such. And then it is preserved to make it to information download from future generations. So like, back in the day, they used to burn libraries and burn books. That was intentional so that that information wouldn't make it further than it already was. So what a lot of people say, oh, I can't really find that much research on yoga and communities of color, people of color, Black people, Africa. Just know that yoga is really about connection to our bodies. It's not like, oh, I have to do this pose like this to be doing yoga. That's a misconception. And so because yoga is connection to ourselves, yoga's been around since humans existed. So, you can say like people of color invented yoga. Like I feel a deep connection to yoga. But just think about it. When your hand hurts, what do? You rub your hand. When people didn't have as many distractions back in the day with technology. So when your stomach hurt, you rubbed your stomach. You started eating herbs to take care of your stomach. That's a practice of self-connection. So eating what's good for you is yoga. And people have been doing that for thousands of years. It's only recently that people eat things that they know are going to hurt them. Like, have you ever had that piece of cake or that one, like, dessert is just, like, tastes so good, but you're like, I know this going to hurt later. And eat it anyway? That's a recent phenomenon. It is, when we look at yoga that way, as being a connection to self, then we know that humans, whenever we feel something in our bodies, we respond in a certain way, so we can create that relationship with ourselves. Okay, so we set that up. So with that being said, the yogic practice, they say, is in the etchings of the buildings, in the etchings on the temples, and you see people in these different shapes and these different poses, that it wasn't just like, like how these days, like, oh, let me take a picture. Like, oh, let me take a picture. It was recording their daily practices in their daily lives. You see people presenting things, you see people walking, you see people eating, you see people in yoga poses. Okay? So when we say things that went to India, there were trade routes. So this was even before slaves were being traded. They were trading things like herbs. They were trading spices. They were trading goods. You've heard of all these different trade routes. There are a few that are particularly famous. And what they traded was also information. You know how when you get something, you're like, oh, let me tell her. Oh, I need to tell my sister about this yoga because it is so good. It helped my back, or it helped my this. It helped me in this way. People share information.